Alright, I'm going to do a video about sort of my review and opinions and thoughts on yet again another rapper known as Immortal Technique. Immortal Technique is, I think he's from Peru or some shit. I don't know, is he from Peru? I think he's Peruvian. But yeah, anyway, Immortal Technique is quite a political rapper for those of you who don't know Immortal Technique. For those of you who do know Immortal Technique, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I'll start by saying, and it's probably going to upset people who like Immortal Technique, that he is quite overrated. Like, his message is cool as fuck, don't get me wrong. I quite like his message, but it's more that his beats aren't amazing, they're not the best. Like, some of them are pretty good, but his beats are pretty average. And he's quite monotone in the way he speaks a lot of the time. And he's very self-absorbed, like he repeats his name a hell of a lot. In a similar way to Necro and, well, just loads of hip-hoppers and rappers, essentially. I mean, that scene is full of people who just rep themselves 24/7, but Immortal Technique reps himself quite a lot. But I like Immortal Technique. I was introduced to Immortal Technique by an anarchist friend of mine, Schizo Boy, when we used to both be in like crazy political moods or just a bad mood or just pissed off with good mental shit in general. We'd listen to Immortal Technique together. I'd listen to Immortal Technique a lot on my own whenever I was pissed off with situations. If I saw like protests or riots on TV and shit like that, I'd think about Immortal Technique, because he's dropped a lot of songs about like the conspiracy theory slash truth or theory about 9/11, saying that there were bombs planted on George Washington Bridge and shit. He did a song called "Caught in a Hustle," talking about like I think "Caught in a Hustle's about like people in ghettos and shit. And there's a line in it that says I think it's they'll raise a gun to blast. Like, it's something along the lines of they'll raise a gun to shoot their own, but never raise their gun and cry out freedom at last. Remember, it was never raise their gun and cry out freedom at last. Like, sort of illustrating how, from his perspective, people are put into ghettos, into horrible environments, killing each other when actually their real demons are outside of those ghettos. Like, you know, they could go out there, they could shoot the people who they think are oppressing them. Like, I guess the law enforcement would be the people oppressing them, the people who made these ghettos in the first place. And yeah, essentially take the fight to them instead of killing each other, saying that they could move out of that territory and have a better life and such. Another song called "Dance with the Devil," I think it is. Yes, it is "Dance with the Devil." And he's talking about a guy, he said, I think this is a story about a young nigga. His real name is William. And it's on about how he used to deal in the hood, how he was selling weed and shit. Just, you know, talking about like how he started off, how he got into like a higher level of corruption. And essentially it says how he moved up to selling crack rock. He got locked up and didn't hesitate to squeal. So, you know, he's basically a rat in jail, which is, in the rap and hip hop world, pretty fucking despicable. And as well, in jail, it's pretty despicable. Like, you're gonna go to jail, don't rat out on the fucking other people that you fucking know. Like, that's some fucking dog shit, man. If I go to jail for like say an armed robbery and I've got two other people with me, I ain't gotta fucking tell them who they are, man. Why fucking send other people to jail to reduce your sentence? You're gonna be in for time anyway, man. That's some fucked up shit. Don't fucking squeal on people. Send them in. But anyways, that's irrelevant. So yeah, so it says about how he went to jail and how he came out and sold crack rock, and said that niggas never thought he was real because obviously he squealed on in jail, and these hard men approached him and said any nigger can sell coke on the block. Even Puffy smoked a motherfucker out in the club. And he said, it takes a real man to stab someone till they die, staring in front of you, standing in front of you, staring into their eyes, watching them bleeding as they die, or something along those lines, sort of illustrating these people were like, you know, pretty fucking serious. Like stabbing someone to death and staring them down in the eyes whilst watching them die is some pretty fucking heavy shit, man. And yeah, suggested that he goes and rapes a woman to prove that he's cold-hearted. And essentially, the story turns out that they take this woman and they rape her. They put a bag over her head, and take the bag off off her head. And he looks at the woman, and it turns out to be his mother. And it's said that it was more painful to her than when they were raping her, etc., etc. And he said, I think he said something along the lines of, William stared straight into the eyes of his mother. Now he knew what it was like to be empty and cold, because he had forsaken her. So he jumped off the roof and died with no soul, and then fell to the ground. That's what you get. I think it's like that's what you get for being wicked. But then again, those like talking about people who go to jail for murder, and he says then again there was always the wicked who knew in advance. Dancing with the devil on a cold cell block. He might be right in front of you, staring into your eyes, like. So yeah, essentially it's just about like really fucking high level corruption, like the soullessness that you see from that kind of industry. There's also another song. I'm not sure if it's Peruvian Cocaine or another one, where he says, "Slice." No, it's not. It's something else. Oh, it's Land of the Gun, I think it is. And he says, slicing a gram is a bloody game, just like throwing mice in a fan. Young nigga. Sorry. But yeah. So he talks about that kind of corruption. There's a song called Peruvian Cocaine where it's sort of about how officials bribe each other, and how like the American government is involved in the cocaine trade in Peruvia and such. And then there's other stuff like Harlem Streets, talking about like sort of the struggles that are there in Harlem and such. So yeah, Immortal Technique does talk a lot about like protest movements around the world. He's got Rich Man's World, which talks about the Rockefellers and the Rothschild family, how they just own everything, and how like they got the real money. Like he said something about, I own a house for each one of my children's children. My old money bought your rich grandparents, etc., etc. Like, essentially saying how they own everything, how they own you. So, you could say he's a pretty fucking politically motivated rapper. He talks about a lot of different injustices, particularly political injustices, social, economic injustices, like classism, this kind of thing. So he was always good to listen to when you're angry, when you're pissed at the government, when you see horrible things happen around the world, like, because he's there for the people, whether his views are right, whether his solutions are right. Inconsequential, it's more that you kind of feel like he has an understanding of problems and like the perspective from the people who've been fucked over. So I quite like listening to Immortal Technique when I feel, you know, excessively pissed off with the government and quite rebellious. Essentially, he's quite a good influence in that way, and I think he's actually been to other countries and helped them like build schools. I think he's done like he's given grants to kids to do English writing and shit like that. He's given various amounts of money to charity. He didn't get signed to a label. He's an independent artist who sold all of his music himself. So yeah, the guy's pretty fucking motivated, pretty true to what he talks about from what I've seen. I mean, for all I know, he could just be another con artist. But he sold all his shit himself. You know, he helps out a few different charities. He helps out like immigrants. He visits youngsters in prisons and shit. So yeah, he seems like a fucking solid dude. Pretty true to his word. So repping him, man. Even though his music's about average in terms of like its production and the way he sings. It's the content. The content is brilliant, and he's definitely very true to his content. Anyways, yeah, I guess that's my 2 cents on Immortal Technique. So, yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.